welcome back to another episode of the Globe interview series. I'm here today with Michael Kong, CEO at Fantom Foundation. So Michael, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
The Globe mobile app is now live on the Apple App Store. Trade anytime, anywhere, with any asset as collateral. Stay connected with all your positions on the go. Globe, exchange everything, now even easier.
So, could you tell us a bit about yourself first?
So I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. That's where I grew up, and I went to school and university. But now, I live in Nassau in the Bahamas. That I just moved there recently, towards the end of last year. So my background has been in finance and IT. That's what I studied at university. And I guess how I got into space was, I heard about Bitcoin in 2012 and didn't really do anything with it. And in 2013, I talked to a few more people who were explaining to me more about what Bitcoin is and the philosophy behind it, about it being a decentralized form of money, etc. So that's when I started to get a bit more interested, and I purchased some Bitcoin, but then I didn't really do much in terms of the development in the space because I wasn't really interested in working in what I saw as just payments technology at the time. But then 2015, 2016 rolled around, and at university, there were a number of people who were going around and evangelizing, shall we say, Ethereum, right? And they would just go into different people and be like, hey, by the way, have you heard of this new technology called Ethereum? You can build stuff called smart contracts, and these are what smart contracts are like, and this is how you do it, and these are all the potential use cases. And one of those people, I talked to a friend of mine, and then he talked to me, and I was very interested in what he had to say, and I thought wow, there's potentially something real there. So I started playing around with smart contracts, and actually for my final year thesis, I managed to join a research group that was focused on researching smart contract security, so creating tools to identify vulnerabilities in smart contracts. And so we did some work there, and later on I started working as a software engineer in the blockchain space at a company called Blockade, and then later started a cryptocurrency fund towards the end of 2017. And then a long story how I got involved in Fantom, but that was one of our clients that we had. And then eventually I got a lot more involved, and so did other people. Because certain events that took place there, and basically just rebuilt the team and the technology to where we are today.
Amazing. So what you're saying is that you got poached by
well, not really got poached. It's just that the team that we were originally working with, it used to be a Korean project. They had promised that they had developed all sorts of technology similar to the technology that we had now, but it turns out that wasn't true. So what I did was I got a lot more involved, and so did other people, to rebuild the team and make sure that we could actually deliver on the technology that we promised to during the ICO. And it was, Fantom was one of the most successful ICOs of 2018. I think we raised a bit over $41 million, and that was early to mid 2018. So, a combination of internal factors plus, the bear market conditions meant that I had to get a lot more involved. That's basically what happened.
Awesome. So could you tell me about actually your goals at Fantom?
So there's the overarching goal is that we want to grow and develop the Fantom ecosystem as much as possible. So what that entails is two main focuses, right? The main focus is on the technology itself, right? So obviously, without having the technology platform out there, you're not going to have an ecosystem. You're not going to have the technology that allows people to deploy applications on there. So there's a big focus on what we call the core development. So that's focusing on what we call networking problems or core consensus problems. And then there's the work that we're also doing on the middleware, which is around being able to process smart contracts a lot more efficiently. And so that's one aim. The other aim is business development. So going out there and doing marketing, doing interviews such as this, and really just going out there and telling people hey, there's this technology platform called Fantom. You can build all sorts of applications on there, and you can execute transactions in a fast and cheap manner, and you can do it while having the full chain security. So we don't we don't have just one database running to confirm transactions. We don't have just parts of the network confirming transactions. We have the entire network confirming transactions. And so it's really those two aspects that we focus on, business development and technology. those are really our aims, and it's about like telling people that there's a platform out there that's fast transactions, cheap transactions, secure transactions, and basically just to grow it as much as possible, get as many users, as many applications as possible. That's really the aim.
Amazing. So I know a lot of blockchains out there, they claim to be Ethereum killers, right? Do you think Fantom has that ability?
Well, I think like what we have right now and how it's going to be going into the future is that we're going to be living in a like a multi-chain environment. Like that's the term that people use. And what I mean by that is, there are multiple blockchains out there, and some blockchains may specialize or may be known for like particular industries such as like metaverse or gaming or NFTs or insurance, etc. And people will interact with multiple chains, right? So you see that at the moment, people will like move like tokens between different chains. They use it via bridges, which has its advantages and disadvantages. And I think going forward into the future, you're still going to have like a multi-chain environment. Now, you might not have like 20 or 30 blockchains that people use, but I think on average people use maybe like 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think that's what's going to continue into the future. So I don't think Fantom is going to like ever like be an Ethereum killer, so-called, or completely just take all the market share of Ethereum, simply because like Ethereum is too big and too well known. But I think like, you have a lot of people out there that will continue using Ethereum, but also use Fantom as well. And they might see that there's a particular application that runs on Fantom because it requires higher performance, for example, such as gaming, that is too expensive to do on Ethereum. And so you might see people go from Ethereum to Fantom, but then still use Ethereum for other kind of applications.
Perfect, thank you. So actually, recently, something that Fantom did that has caused quite a mixed reaction on the Twitter sphere is the yield, right?
Yeah.
So the people of Twitter would love to know, what is the growth opportunity identified in lowering the yields?
So I think what's important to note is that like the decision to like lower the yields to about like half of what it used to be before, right, was like first and foremost determined by the community, right? So obviously like the foundation had its opinion, and I can state the opinion of the foundation, but like first and foremost it was decided by the community itself, right? Because it required 66% participation and also 66% agreement. So of all the people that staked their tokens, 66% of them had to vote, and at least 66% of the people who voted had to agree on an option, right? And this is the option that they agreed on out of like multiple options, right? And the reason why we propose this as a foundation is that we wanted to extend the runway of the block rewards yield, right? Basically like double it to about 4 years or 3.5 years now, right? And that's to give us time to basically like figure out what we do longer term in terms of like staking rewards, and also allow us to significantly increase the number of transactions on the network, which is like part to do with like, kind of like market conditions and just kind of like being out there and getting more applications on the platform. And also part of it has to do with increase in technology. So if we can increase the capacity of the technology, you basically increase the amount of fees that are generated on the network, because the network can generate more transactions, right? And so it basically like gives us a lot more time. But also the yield that we had before was comparatively very high compared to like other like alternative layer ones out there. And so by lowering it, we have kind of like made it more like comparative. And also like I think anyone who believes in like Fantom long term and the goals that we can achieve are gonna be staking their tokens and interacting with the community as they are now. Like a lot of people who stake on Fantom, particularly the bigger holders, are very much involved in the ecosystem, not just in terms of governance, but in terms of like engaging with people, with the community, and engaging with the foundation. So those are all kind of like the reasons why we had that proposal in place.
Amazing. And so you mentioned there's going to be a 3.5-4 year runway after this lowering of the yield. Do you guys have any plans in place after that runway runs out?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of ideas being floated. One is that we may just have enough transactions, enough transaction fees to generate like a similar amount of yield. Right. Because when you do the maths, like if we just have like 2 to 3 times more transactions and a little bit of a higher transaction fee, mind you, like the transaction fee right now is very, very low. So even if you multiply by 10, you're talking about going from like a fraction to a cent to still a fraction of a cent. Maybe like 0.01 to 0.1 like FTM per transaction, right? So it might be a combination of that. Plus, we might increase like the max supply, but in the end, it's not the foundation that's going to decide. It's going to be the community. So if the community wants to increase like the fees in the network, to increase like the max supply, then they can like vote to determine that, right? But those are kind of like the two broad ideas at the moment. But there are other ideas that I know people in the community are talking about. Like another idea that maybe is complementary to the other two that I mentioned is called like liquid staking, right? So maybe we have more functionality in terms of liquid staking and people being able to participate in all sorts of like different parts of the ecosystem, which allows them to, not only does it help like generate usage for the network, but it also helps generate rewards or fees for the validators as well. So there's a lot of ideas out there, and we haven't like really like made like a final decision on any of them in terms of like what we want to go forward with as a foundation.
Awesome. So it's all very up in the air right now.
Yeah, that's right. But with the recent change, we have a bit of time. Obviously we don't have like all the time in the world, but we have a bit of time to come up with ideas, and also for the community to come up with ideas as well.
Mm-hmm. So what is the best course of action? Let's say you're part of the Fantom community and you want to, propose some ideas. Where can the community do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you go to our website, Fantom Foundation, there's and you scroll down to the footer, there's like a number of like different social links, right? So like most of the groups that most of the people that talk together in groups, that they tend to be on either like Discord or Telegram. So if you join like a Discord and a Telegram, you'll see like a number of like different like Fantom groups, a lot of them community run, and there's probably groups out there that I don't even know that exist. Some groups are quite big with like 1,000 members. Other groups are probably smaller with like a fraction of that. So what I would recommend is going to like Discord and Telegram, and then joining these groups. And there's a couple of official Fantom groups as well, and you can basically meet other people in the community and discuss with them like your thoughts and feelings and what you want to do. You can also reach out to the foundation directly. People like direct message me sometimes. People direct message the Twitter Foundation account. We also have like a public email as well. So there's a number of ways that people can contact the foundation or engage with the community as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I was wondering, what does the future of Fantom look like for you?
So in terms of like the usage, I think you're going to see a lot of different use cases on Fantom right now. In the future. So right now you have like it's mainly used for DeFi, so decentralized finance-based applications, and also NFTs. So interestingly, right now, over the past like few months, we've had quite a few games actually deploy on Fantom. So early in the year, we didn't have as many games. We've had quite a few new games, and we kind of talked about some of the games that we deployed on Fantom across all sorts of different industries, whether it's all sorts of different like gameplay, whether it's like role-playing games, trading card games, etc. So I think like some of them will probably like take off and get a lot of users. But I think longer term than that, apart from those two use cases I mentioned, DeFi and NFTs, you're going to be soon seeing things such as P2P insurance take place, more supply chain management based applications, more data verification applications, verifying physical documents, etc. So I think that's taking place. I know, some companies that are working in that space that are looking to deploy on Fantom. So long term, I think we're just going to be expanding the use case. And also in terms of the technology, we'll be able to handle that capacity via the changes that we're making. So we're focusing a lot on like core and also middleware development. So being able to execute as many transactions as possible, and sort of like the moonshot goal that I've given to the team, which we all agree on, is our singular one goal, is to be able to cater to about 100 million transactions on a daily basis. So, we're obviously like not there yet, but that is our overarching goal. So if we can achieve that over the next few years in terms of our technology developments, that would be very, very good for us.
Amazing. So what's your average daily transactions now?
It kind of varies. One, because of the activities in the crypto ecosystem, and number two, because it also depends on like the size of the transactions, right? So not all transactions are created equal, because some transactions use more gas or use more computation than others. But I'd say on average, if you go to like FTM scan, which is like one of the explorers on Fantom, you can see that the daily average transactions kind of varies greatly from anywhere from about 500,000 to about 1 million. So that's like sort of like the range we're seeing at the moment, which is like comparable to like other layer ones out there. And Ethereum has a bit more than that, but we're still like a significant, like a fraction of like Ethereum total transactions. I think on average we maybe do like 60 or 70% what Ethereum does.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Right. So it's nice to see you taking such a long-term view of Fantom, no matter what the market is saying right now. So, I mean, you seem well-versed in macroeconomics from your other interviews that I've seen online. So could you tell us a bit about, your thoughts on the market right now and how projects can succeed in times of economic downturn?
Yeah, I think like the economic situation that we're in right now is quite different from how it was like just a few years ago when crypto markets were not doing so good, right? And so like I think like the combination of like I think what's happening is that governments have like printed so much money, right? And they've caused so much inflation. And by inflation, I don't mean like the increase in just like the consumer prices, right? I mean like increases in the money supply itself, right? And so what's happening now is that a lot of that money that's been injected in the system, it went into like financial assets and it went into crypto and went into real estate, right? And everybody was kind of happy with that because people see it as kind of good inflation in terms of like, everyone feels wealthier, right? But then some of that money leaks into consumer prices, which is like exactly what have happened now, right? And now like, the increase in consumer prices, is due to a number of factors, but like the politicians are not exactly correct when they say, oh, it's just like Putin's fault and it's all like Putin's price hikes and all that. You see it and hear a lot of that rhetoric. They're not telling you the truth. The truth is that it's primarily driven by the monetary policies, by printing all this money. And so like a high inflationary environment is generally not seen as good for what is seen as like risk on assets, which includes like technology and crypto, right? So I think during like periods of like hard market times like we're in right now, all you have to do is just really just build, right? Just build and just keep building until conditions get better. So when there's a lot more interest in crypto and a lot more people want to get in, you'll be able to like have an application there that is able to like take advantage of the number of users coming in. I mean, just to use like Fantom as an example in terms of its history, like in 2018, like Fantom launched, right, mid 2018, and completed its ICO, and that was during kind of like a bear market, right? And so all we could do was just like build, right? And so we spent like a year and a half building the technology platform. And we launched the mainnet at the end of 2019, right? And launching that mainnet at that time allowed us to basically get users in 2020 and 2021 when there happened to be a lot more interest in crypto, right? And so, had we not developed the platform, we would have captured none of those users and basically, the project will be dead, right? And so I think like people just need to kind of like build for like the next like bunch of users that come in. That being said, there's still a lot of people using crypto. And in fact, if you look at the numbers, there were more people using crypto in 2018 than in 2017. And I think when we look back at the numbers in 2022, I think people will still see that there are a lot of users using crypto than even like the prior years. So fundamentally, there's an increase in usage over time. There's an increase in different functionality. There's real use cases where there weren't necessarily real use cases a few years ago. And so the trajectory, I think, for the growth of the ecosystem is like very, very positive in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you. So what are your thoughts on the whole FTX situation that's happened recently?
Well, first and foremost, I think like what's happened is quite tragic. I mean, a lot of people appear to have lost like a lot of money. So obviously like the users of the exchange, but also a lot of the employees at FTX who probably didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden this literally just happened in a few days. And also like the people that, in the Bahamas economy that, were supplying different services and stuff to FTX, they probably now have like a whole bunch of invoices that may not necessarily get paid. And so it's kind of like all up in the air. That being said, I think like what it kind of shows is that like when it comes to centralized exchanges, there needs to be like a decent level of transparency. So one of it is obviously like listing the wallets and verifying that, the exchange actually controls those wallets, like hot wallets and cold wallets. And so people can see in real time, what the actual like crypto balances are. But I think also like having a regular audit done by like a reputable audit firm, maybe every like 3 months or quarter, or maybe like every half year, to regularly show people that you actually have like the user funds there, that it is back 1-to-1, and that you have like a bit of a cash reserve on top of it, in case anything goes wrong, is probably like something that's going to be like really helpful for users and would really like gain the trust of users. And I think like one of the positives that has come out of this situation is that there are a lot of major changes out there that are trying to increase transparency, that are now are hiring like audit firms, and doing what we call proof of reserves, right? So I think like the market will kind of heal itself in that, a lot of people have been burned by FTX. A lot more people can be wary now about exchange reserves. And so I think people are going to be like looking for exchanges that have, this proof of reserves, that are more transparent and that are less likely to be risky, right? And not going to be using client money. And so I think in that sense, like, it's kind of like good, it's kind of like a good change in like people's thoughts about exchanges and how they want to use exchanges. But another thing I want to clarify is that people shouldn't conflate what has happened at FTX with decentralized finance, because decentralized finance is completely different. In fact, it's harder to get away with like bad things in decentralized finance sometimes, because you have transparency on the blockchain. You can see the funds moving in and out, etc. Right? And in some applications, it's truly not controlled by any individual. They're just controlled by the code. So if the code is correct, then the application should continue to run smoothly without any issues whatsoever. And so it's important to note that what is in FTX is not to do with decentralized finance. In fact, it shows that decentralized finance has particular advantages over centralized finance in terms of like, in particular, like the level of transparency and the more trustless nature of DeFi.
Amazing, thank you. That was quite an optimistic view of it, so thank you for that.
I think there's obviously a lot of bad things that come out of this. A lot of people have lost money, but I think on the flip side, there is a silver lining to it, in that I think like the standards for exchanges going forward is people are going to hold them to a higher standard, and I think that will lead to better behavior and basically a better ecosystem overall.
Absolutely. So, do you have any finishing comments for us?
All I have to say is that like I know like people are going through like tough times at the moment, particularly the macroeconomic environment. But I think fundamentally, when it comes to crypto, there's a lot of use cases there, and I think the number of users are growing on the year-on-year period, and that the technology is like fundamentally real, right? And you can't put everything on the blockchain. Not everything needs to be on the blockchain, but there are particular use cases I mentioned. For example, like the ability to do peer-to-peer insurance, the ability to do trustless transactions when it comes to DeFi, the ability to like trade peer-to-peer when it comes to NFTs and incorporate these NFTs in multiple games and have complete ownership over it. I think those are all important use cases. And so I think people need to like realize that the fundamentals of the crypto technology are real, and that even though there are market conditions which affect like all companies, not just crypto companies, but non-crypto companies, that in the end, if you believe the technology is fundamentally real and that it's growing, then you should realize that like over time, it's just going to get bigger and better, right? And that maybe you shouldn't necessarily worry about short-term fluctuations in markets.
Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time.
Thanks so much for inviting me. Again, like, appreciate being here.
A pleasure. I'll see you next time. Bye.